Hey guys, Eli here for Do It Again Games. Today we are talking about, well, actually Matt Walsh. This is not a kind of video I've done before. My channel's very new, few hundred subscribers. I mostly do shorts content. I used to do more videos, but to be honest, they don't perform. YouTube is very convinced that shorts are the future. And so that's mostly what I do now. And I play Call of Duty, the dumbest and stupidest of all games, a lot of the time because, once again, it performs well. And, I like Call of Duty well enough. But Matt Walsh does not like video games. I don't think he likes anything but video games, TV, movies. But I want to see in this video what he says that it got the internet all ablaze as usual. And on top of that, is he wrong? Because that's what we got to do, is keep an open mind to other ideas. I'm obviously an adult who plays a lot of video games because I have a YouTube channel. It's something I enjoy. And to be honest, I live in New York and the weather sucks here. Right now it is pouring. I tried to go do something. It was just like, no, the weather just hates me. But anyways, we're going to get into this video and I'm going to just basically, I guess, react to this video and see what Matt Walsh has to say. Is he all right, all wrong? I guess we'll get into it.
I speak publicly through several different mediums every day of my life. And you might think that those who wish to be outraged by my comments would find more than enough new fodder every day to keep them satiated. But somehow that is not the case. The outrage mob demands even more reasons to be mad at me. And so they will not only sift through my daily comments, but they'll also dig through everything I've said over the past 10 years to find more ammunition. And this creates a situation where nearly every day I have factions of the outrage mob screaming at me because of things I said that day, and then I have other factions screaming at me arbitrarily over something I said years ago. So they'll come banging on my door, metaphorically, shouting, "Hey, remember this thing you said on September 14th, 2016?
Okay, guys. Everybody was kind of, I don't know how to put this, young and dumbish. There you go. We can see Matt's pretty man beard there now. Everyone said things in the past that they don't really care or agree with, that they change their mind about, and I doubt that's where we're going here with Matt, but still, I think that it is kind of crazy that people go digging in people's past for things that they did. Maybe it's because I just have a Christian attitude, and I want some forgiveness and forgetting, where it just goes, you have to be aware of people's past, but that doesn't mean that you constantly point out what young and dumb people said. But he probably isn't going to change his mind anyway, so it's okay.
And I'll say, no, I actually don't. That was a long time ago. I don't. What are you talking about? And they'll say, well, here's what you said, and you said it, and we're mad about it 7 years later. And I'll say, okay, well, have fun with that, I guess. I don't know what to do for you. And then I'll go about my day. That's usually the way it was.
Like 21.
But every once in a while, this randomly reignited outrage provides me with an opportunity to revisit or expand upon an important point. And that's what happened yesterday when, for some reason, my Twitter mentions became filled with people upset over something that I tweeted on March 8th, 2018. And here's the offending tweet. This was me. Video games are a sacred cow because our country is filled with adults who are obsessed with them. That's why we all pretend insanely that there's nothing wrong with or disturbing about a child spending all day killing people in a virtual world.
Okay, so we need to, I'm trying to crop this in a way that I don't get copyright strike. To be funny though, I would love it if my first copyright strike came from the Daily Wire. That would be truly hilarious. But anyways, so looking at this statement, 2018. 2018 doesn't feel that long ago. Like that does feel like 2 minutes ago. So, but video games are a sacred cow. Okay, so we got biblical reference in there where the sacred cow is a reference to creating idols for yourself other than God. Obviously Matt Walsh is a Christian, so am I. I am also an adult who plays a lot of video games and thinks that video games can be great for kids. I would struggle, to say the least, with, I don't know, not everyone had maybe the awesome childhood Matt Walsh did. I don't know. Like, video games are an escape from your own mind. Sometimes people deal with personal demons. And then as an adult, it's just some of us don't get to talk into a camera all day. We have their video games are a fun way, and in a lot of cases, not always. In a lot of ways, it's an expensive hobby, but in a lot of ways, it can be a very inexpensive hobby to go about your day. $100 a year is a lot less than a vacation, and you can have fun every day with a video game after literally breaking your back for a lot of people. And but more the point is Matt Walsh here is not talking about adults. Now Matt Walsh uses very poignant words whenever he says anything, and when I read this, but it's important to keep in context. The end of it is children spending all day killing people in virtual worlds. There are kids right now who skip school and are going to spend all day playing Fortnite or Call of Duty or pick your poison, as it were. I wish that every kid spent all of every day playing Minecraft, but they are not. There are, I'm going to go with tens of thousands. Working adults don't have time to spend all day playing Call of Duty. Some choose to do it that way. Many responsible adults I know do, but yeah, that's just a true statement. You shouldn't let your kids play Call of Duty all day or any violent game. Besides the fact that it's technically not supposed to be happening at all, those children shouldn't be getting access to those games. And if your kid is playing Call of Duty or Fortnite all day, you're a bad parent.
Shocking stuff. Apparently, in 2018, I made the provocative claim that children shouldn't spend all day playing violent video games. Lots of people apparently disagree. They, I guess, think that children should spend all day playing violent video games. I mean, I could see a response where you say, well, no kids spending all day playing violent video games. But to respond like you disagree with the statement is another thing entirely, but that's what happened. Now, part of the reason why people dig up old tweets is that it gives them, or they believe it gives them, a rhetorical advantage because they can pluck one statement from the past, completely remove it from the broader context and conversation it was a part of, ignore everything else I may have said about that subject at the time to flesh out my views, and instead they can engage with this one statement as if it was made in a void. You know, it's a clever way to make a straw man out of somebody's argument, even while quoting them directly. It may be a correct quote, like I did say that, but it's only one part of a larger thought. And the larger thought is lost, leaving only the one single piece that you have isolated. For an example of how this works, here's what a guy named George Alexopoulos, who has a relatively large social media following apparently, here's what he tweeted at me yesterday in response to my tweet from 5 years ago. He said, quote, "Video games are a medium, not a genre, you bearded puritanical Philistine. If your child is only playing games where he's murdering people, get educated and buy him Minecraft, Rocket League, Mario Maker. Better yet, play games together and bond."
Okay, so Mario, all those are great games. Minecraft is a great game. Rocket League is a great game. And Mario Maker is a great game. But to be clear, people seem to be confused. There is not really a difference between Mario and Call of Duty. The level of violence is different, but you're still a murderous plumber going on a rampage, killing everything in sight. And Mario is not really an improvement. I don't know what those little turtles did to you, but Mario be brutalizing the hell out of them. Minecraft, once again, kind of like a creative game. Like, don't get me wrong, but to pretend like Minecraft is a non-violent game is a little silly. It is more kid-friendly, that's for sure. Rocket League is basically soccer with cars, so I'll give you not a lot of violence in that one. But the other two are violent games. Not Call of Duty, not Fortnite, or not any other game you might choose, but they are violent games, and for you to pretend like they're not is okay. I think violence is okay. Like, I'm not really. I think the world is full of violence, and the violence of Minecraft, Call of Duty, Fortnite, Mario Maker, Mario games is pretty low. It is crazy to me that no one's ever. I don't know. No one's ever went and got their own food in America. Like, there's like a few dozen. It feels like dozens of people. I don't know if I've ever met anyone like it's 1 out of 100 who's went and gathered their own food basically in this country. The idea that people are are upset over the mild amount of violence that are in video games compared to the real world is pretty crazy.
Debate me, Matt. He wants to debate me about this point from
Debate
5 years
me.
ago. Now, I'm aware that non-violent video games exist. However, in that one particular statement 5 years ago, I was specifically talking about violent video games, which also exist. Yes, violent video games are a genre, and I was talking about that genre. Okay? So just because I'm talking about one thing in particular, it doesn't mean that I'm denying that other things also exist. It's just that this is what I'm talking about right now, or what I was talking about 5 years ago. There was much more strawmanning where that came from. The Quartering tweeted, quote, "The right's weird obsession with disavowing video games, anime, and social media is why they will never appeal to most of Gen Z. The base is literally dying off, and most of the voices in the community are actively refusing."
Sorry, Jeremy. Big fan. You're wrong. No, young people don't. Gen Z doesn't care about the opinion of Matt Walsh. They're both super based. Like, Gen Z is the most based generation that I've ever met. Like, they are basically without hope, as it were. But they're both simultaneously based. They're out there playing video games and other things. When I talk to Gen Z people, which are really starting to enter the workforce now, so I'm running into a lot of them. Admittedly, they don't know how to come to work on time, which is, I think, probably a universal problem with all young people. But also, no, like, Jeremy, you're an example of, you're not the most conservative guy, Jeremy, but you're an example of, no, all the alt tech people, all the the edgy people, the people who Gen Z are going to be attracted to, are out there playing video games and being conservative, relatively speaking, or at least not being liberal freaking wackos, which is, all it would take. But yeah, I did peek through this video before we're about to get into anime. We'll let Matt get his say, and then I'll talk about it.
Well, with all due respect to Jeremy from the Quartering, I think it's safe to say that I have recruited more people into conservatism than he ever has or ever will. I do sometimes, I have to admit, get a little bit tired of hearing lectures on effectiveness from people who are far less effective. Like, at a certain point, these people need to maybe take a second, realize that maybe you could learn something. Okay, maybe you could learn something from people who are achieving more than you are in this fight. Possibly. People are raving about Genucell products.
So, Matt, I'm skipping your ad. Let's see. Wow, there's a lot of ad here. Okay, there we go. What I'm going to say about that is a true statement. Matt Walsh is a rock star in the conservative community. He has done more than almost anyone else, and good for him. I think he has done, the work he's done is basically magical. Obviously, like, I think you could even, the whole Bud Light thing that's going on right now, you could basically put at the feet of Matt Walsh almost. And he's done wonders, so that's true. But also, Matt, you're missing the point here. Jeremy is not really a conservative, and he's not trying to convert people. He's making a broader statement about conservatives being boring, which is kind of true. That's why I try to be so fun and edgy.
Simplification to accuse me of disavowing video games and social media. You have me on the anime point, however. As we all know, I do literally think that anime is demonic, and every single person who has ever watched it has become possessed by the devil. Literally, that's what I think.
I think that's really funny. I'm not possessed by the devil as a consumer of occasional anime. Matt, once again, this is the one point where Matt is really wrong. Is storytelling is dead in the West. It's 99% dead in the West. Storytelling is bad. There are some really good English authors left who I love. I do love to read, and I love to read. I love audiobooks, and there are some good books that remain. But the hero's journey uniquely lies in anime and manga. There is no interesting. Heroes are not allowed to rise above their weakness in the West. They must constantly trip over themselves and then probably be kind of evil or something. Where in anime, the heroes are allowed to truly rise above and be the best version of themselves and actually accomplish goals. And they're not just constantly putting They're not just constantly like putting the bad guy in jail. Like things happen in anime and in manga where, and to be clear, there's bad, horrible anime and manga in the same way that there's horrible movies, and like for every like tiny good thing in the world of movies or sports or whatever your media is, there's a bunch of people saying and doing horrible things. But that doesn't mean, like, I'm going to say what I always say, Matt Walsh, watch Cowboy Bebop, stop being such a bigot. I always want to say that, Matt Walsh.
But for the rest of it, not so much. These were the most coherent and intelligent rebuttals to my tweet from half a decade ago. Most of the rest were like these. Conservatives returning to their cancel culture roots. Feels like the 1990s all over again. Don't be left-wing, don't be right-wing, have both wings and fly. Someone else said, how is playing video games any different than reading works of fiction, watching TV shows or movies, or any other form of fictional entertainment? I swear, miserable people just want others to be equally as miserable as they are. Another one says, you can tell Matt's parents didn't get him a Nintendo or a Sega for Christmas when he was young. Such a sad childhood he must have had. Then someone else says, the life of Matt Walsh is empty. You could end his life and not a soul would mourn his passing. Well, if you want to...
Those are all horrible things to say, and you shouldn't say any of them on the internet. Like, I don't know. You just, somebody, a random person on the internet wish this dude with like a family, regardless of what else you think, basically death. And that's horrible. What is wrong with you that you'd say such a horrible thing? He has kids. People won't mourn his death. You're right. People will feign mourning if he died, but what you're talking about, that's mentally ill thinking. Like, why would you say something so horrible? And yeah, let's avoid going back to the 1990s cancel culture bullshit that the Christians basically tried to do the whole time. It was unhelpful and mean, and and that is a true statement that Christians tried to cancel everything that basically breathed in the early 90s. And there's probably, I would say, not let's do it because it's not helpful, and it's not helpful, but let's not do it because it got us to where we are now, where everyone thinks is Christian conservatives as fuddy-duds, basically, and it'd be really helpful if you didn't do that, because now you basically told Christians that video games were bad, and now there's not Christian-made video games or movies or school, so on and so forth, for the most part, and it's why we need it's why we have seen and why we need a resurgence of conservative writing, such as American comic books, which we have seen a resurgence of. And we're seeing more hero and conservative stories on the alt tech side of all that. And that's good. But it's a little too late, unfortunately, for a lot of that. And now instead of having to build something, we have to build something new. We can't just fix the system. We're basically from the bottom. And it's funny because places like the Daily Wire are having to make movies, literal movies from scratch, new studios, every blah, 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 blah. Like they're having to do from scratch work because we lost it all. We lost every bit because we basically just decided we were above it, I guess. I don't know.
I want to prove my point that video games are a sacred cow in this country, and many adults are far too invested in them, then wishing death on me for mildly criticizing some video games is definitely one way to do it. Also, same with the claim that a childhood without video games must have been sad. As it happens, I did have a Nintendo growing up, but most of my most cherished childhood memories have nothing to do with anything I played or watched on a screen. You know, I remember things like going on hikes in the woods with my dad, playing kickball out in the backyard, running around outside all day in the summer, drinking out of a garden hose, coming back for dinner, which was always homemade, and we always ate as a family around the dinner table. Those are the kinds of things that I...
All things my family did, and we're all awesome. But also, it's getting... once again, I've always lived in New York, so it's just like, it's getting dark early. It's dark at 7 o'clock. It's getting late in the fall. Kicking back and playing Portal at 14 was... an amazing, like playing the orange box at 14 in the like 2008 or whatever, when I got a 360. We were poor. I got a 360 very late, probably even later than that, to be honest. Was also sitting around with my siblings and playing the orange box and like going through the story and all getting excited about it together as like a group was also awesome. It doesn't mean that swimming in the lake and going out on boating trips and doing walking trails and riding a cow, which is something we did. Like we put a saddle on, rode it around, was awesome too. Like it doesn't mean it's all bad.
I remember. That's what I spent my childhood doing. How sad. What a sad childhood. Listen, yeah, all that stuff is great, but you didn't spend enough time playing Mario. Really sad. Now, we've heard from everyone who misses the point, but what is the point exactly? Well, there are a few points that matter, I think. But you won't be able to hear them if you insist absolutely that no statements, even vaguely critical of video games, can ever be uttered in your presence. Okay, if video games are a religion for you, then there's not much I can say to get through to you. But for everybody else, here's what it boils down to. There's obviously nothing inherently wrong with video games as a medium. Okay, it's just another form of screen-based entertainment.
There you go. Like, what else do you want from the guy? He doesn't like video games, and he's like, there's nothing wrong with it.
And when it comes to our children and to ourselves too as adults, but we're just going to focus on children for now, the two things we have to take into consideration with screen-based entertainment of all kinds are, one, the messages embedded in the content, and two,
which are liberal and horrible a lot. Like these are being made by, in some cases, actual communists.
The amount of time spent on the content. Now, as to the first point, I think all reasonable people understand that the screen is a very powerful messaging system. There's a reason why the corporate world spends literally billions of dollars every year marketing through the screen. They know that it's a very effective way to influence people, especially children. There are plenty of studies that prove this point if you're into that sort of thing, but you don't need a study. You're living in the study. You are the study.
Recapture our data. Don't stop giving it away for free. Protect yourself.
We live in a culture shaped by and around the screen. Go to any school and you'll find a building full of kids whose values, beliefs, priorities, tastes have been nearly completely determined by the content they spend their days ingesting through the screen.
Literally concerts inside a Fortnite.
Video games are not the only example of this, or even the most potent example, but they also obviously aren't an exception. They're in that category. There are all kinds of ideas and images that kids encounter in astronomically large quantities every day. Graphic violence is one category. It's not good for kids to spend an exorbitant amount of time consuming graphically violent content, even if the content
a correct statement
is fictional and virtual and imaginary. It doesn't mean that it has no influence just because it's fictional. Among other things, it can have the effect of desensitizing their minds and their souls to violence. And the kind of casual cruelty and violence that we so often see among kids today is a pretty good evidence of this desensitization. Like it kind of boggles my mind that anyone could hear an argument like that.
I disagree with Matt. The idea that the world's more violent today, that people are more cruel today than they were 100 years ago, or 200 or 500. The idea that your common like Roman citizen was more peaceful than we are today is not true. Like the common violence of the past is tempered today. Now, the striking out at the world to get in front of the cameras, that's a problem. That's a new problem, obviously. But the idea, it's national news when two guys beat another guy outside a bar to death in America. And there used to be hundreds of millions of people alive, and now there's billions. And the violence is kind of less compared to the population. It's not what it once was. And when somebody goes missing, everybody notices immediately. Like people just don't die in the woods like they used to either. So I don't know. It's not quite like that.
Because kids are being desensitized to violence. Then you hear people say, well, what do you mean? Where's your evidence of that? Where's my evidence of it? Look around you. What are you talking about? You're living in the evidence. Now, this doesn't mean that kids should never be exposed to any form of violence at all. Violence is part of the world. It's not always bad either. There's heroic violence. There's violence in defense of the innocent and so on. It's good for kids to be given examples of that kind of violence, even if the examples are sometimes fictional, even if they're cartoonish.
That's something I've come across. As people know, I make a lot of DMZ content. This video is getting very long here. I make a lot of DMZ content, and yeah, the common cruelty of people, like I get that it's Call of Duty, so you can't really have high standards. But DMZ is a mode where you don't have to bother anybody, and I bothered people before. Players often do not leave my vicinity, but I almost always try to play nice before making it dumb and all that. So I don't know. My point would be is I hope that people choose to be kind whenever possible, and it's obvious that the common cruelty is high.
Superheroes, for example, are an example of heroic violence. But when the violence is gratuitous and amoral and overly graphic, when it is violence for the sake of violence, when it's violence where the entertainment comes from simply watching someone suffer, even if in a fictional context, that is when it becomes a problem, especially for kids. There's a message in that kind of content too, and it's a message that undermines human dignity and desensitizes the viewer, especially if the viewer is a child. So I think we should be very careful about
I think that is something we miss a lot, is that children are more easily influenced than adults, at least on average. I'm sure there's some kind of graph somewhere that shows intelligence level. Obviously, adults are smarter, but wisdom is different than intelligence, and I think it's really your wisdom that grows. I don't think children are a lot less intelligent than adults. It's the understanding of how to use the objects you're dealt. Obviously, you know more the older you get, but it seems that there's not like a humongous difference in intelligence between most teenagers and most adults. They're just stupid. Um, not they have a lack of understanding how to use what they've been told.
Kind of
But
violence that kids are exposed to, whether it's through a film, a television, a show, a video on social media, or a video game. Second point, putting the quality of the content aside, which you really can't do because the quality through all of these mediums is so often garbage, but setting that aside,
true.
volume is the other great concern. Whether we're talking about social media, shows, movies, or games, kids are spending a huge portion of their formative childhood years staring at screens. They aren't having real childhood experiences. They aren't learning how to relate to each other and to the world. They're becoming fat and depressed. They can barely even like speak to each other. They can't look you in the eye. They don't stand up straight. They're just staring down the phone all the time. And all of this can be.
That's called child abuse, guys. If your child is obese and you're not doing anything about it, things get away from you in life. But if your child has a phone, a computer, a tablet, and they weigh as much as they should as an adult, you're both, one, a bad parent, and two, that seems like abuse.
Trace back to a life dedicated to these damned screens. This is why we don't do video games or phones or computers in our home with our 6 kids. It's not because we're afraid they're going to, spontaneously combust if they ever hold a phone in their hand or play Minecraft or whatever, but it's because the screen is a tyrant. It demands obsessive attention, and it usually gets what it demands. There's an undeniable addictive quality to all this stuff, and most of us know that from experience. It's possible to moderate your own usage. It's possible to moderate your child's usage of the device. It's possible to moderate the kind of content they're exposed to on these devices, but the vast majority of parents fail to impose that kind of moderation. And that's why it seems more effective to us in my home and a sure bet to simply keep it all away for now. After all, our kids will have a whole lifetime in front of them to waste away staring at screens if that's how they choose to spend their adulthood. I hope they don't, but they can. When they're adults, they can do what they want. But they'll never be able to get this time back. They can never have a second childhood. As much as my generation might try to pull that off for ourselves, trying to have
The obsession with having your childhood never end is crazy to me. As someone who like collects toys, like, it is crazy where it's just like, I truly enjoy the collecting aspect of it. It's different for everybody, but it's just like, yeah, it's not because I don't want my childhood back. I like being an adult. Like, it's great to do what I want when I want, for the most part.
second childhood. You can't actually do that. Our kids will have time for the screens, more than enough time, way too much time. For now, I want them to have a childhood. And whether you let your kids play video games or not, I hope you don't allow the video game or the TV or the phone to become their childhood. That's the issue. And that's why ultimately it's the parents who allow the screens to dominate their children's lives who are today canceled. That'll do it for us.
Okay, guys, that's all. This has been a very long video. I hope everyone who watched it, that's a half an hour of my life I'm not going to get back. But I hope that you guys took something away from this. As somebody who's adult, who plays a lot of video games myself, I run a YouTube channel where I exclusively do video game content for the most part. I think that it would be crazy, and I would say you should keep your kids out of the limelight, off the internet, away from YouTube. The toxicity that exists is insane. You should. There's tons of videos out there. Get a Plex server, guys. Like, find the buy those hard copies and upload them. Build your own Netflix to protect your kids from the wild shit that's out there. If you're gonna let your kids play video games, you're an adult. I'm assuming a lot of people who are watch this will just be adults. You're limited by having a job, for example, on how much you can do things like engage with video games, and you need to control the time. But there's no reason that on a cold, windy day like today, very cold, very windy, that you can't play some video games with your kids and bond over that. You just need to make sure that they're not doing it just all moments of all days. It just can be so destructive. Same thing with TV. The only thing more destructive than video games is TV. Like, it basically, I would say social media, TV, video games are the most destructive forms of media in that order. Video games can at least be somewhat constructive, and it can get you into learning about tech and make a YouTube channel, for example. That's where it led me. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Matt Walsh, thank you for making the video. A lot of that needs to be said. And you're wrong about anime. Have a beautiful day, everybody. This is Eli and Do It Again Games, and I'll see you in the next one.